Think about this. Your father is the first person in the outside world that either chooses you or doesn't. And it's the answer to that question that will inevitably shape you and everyone around you for the rest of your life and theirs.
On the surface, if you just take snapshots of Western culture right now, the prognosis is not good.
Well, what my mom has told me, he left when I was 1.
I remember the day I lost all respect for my father, and I was 16 years old, and I saw him doing lines of cocaine, and he did it right in front of me.
Say, you know, please, Dad, help me, do something, and he would just shake his head and shrug his shoulders and do nothing.
So many men who were never fathered themselves, for example, they really don't know how to do it energetically. Do you understand?
Yeah, he just left. He didn't even say why, or the last thing I remember was that him and my mom were having an argument, and then from there on I don't remember anything.
He molested me. He was always locked up in the penitentiary. He was never around to help my mother.
My father was never there.
I think there's cultural angst, if you will, in the fact that there's this innate understanding that this is not the way it should be.
They shot him when I was in my mom's stomach. They killed him at gunpoint. So I don't have a dad.
In the beginning, I can't remember any moments with him because he wasn't there. So.
Because he wasn't like never there for me, you know what I mean? You know, he never told me about the streets, you know what I mean? He wasn't no father.
I can't think of a man or woman in the jail that I worked with over 14 years that had a good father. I mean, it's just universal.
The one person, the one man in my life that's supposed to be my #1 role model, you know, was a loser.
Now, this won't fix itself. It'll get worse and worse until we realize what's at the root, right? And the root's fatherlessness. Every man has one question, one, that they're asking. Do I have what it takes? Right? Am I powerful? Am I real? Can I come through? That is the core question of the masculine germ. I mean, that shapes and drives everything a man is and says and does. Do I have what it takes? And the boy is supposed to get the answer to the question from his father.
John Eldredge is the author of the faith-based book and video curriculum Wild at Heart, which to date has sold close to 4 million copies. Eldredge's approach is to get men to understand that nearly everyone has a wound created by their father. Now that wound, which remains open and tender to millions of men worldwide, is the direct result of the one question being asked, am I good enough? And the answer consisting of silence.
It is normal right now in the culture in the West for boys, young men, and even grown men now to experience life without fathering. It's like he walks around with a question mark on his chest for the rest of his life, and he's looking for the validation, right, in 100 places. You know, he looks to the woman. Tell me who I am as a man, right? In so many other ways. So that, the father wound comes when the boy doesn't receive the affection, and he doesn't receive the affirmation or the validation that he needs to become confident and secure, right, and selfless man.
We seek our approval. We know Mother loves us, but approval we want from our Father.
Now, he doesn't get that from his father. He gets a very profound wound, either through silence, right? Dad's just not there, he's not present, he's checked out, he doesn't tell him who he is, right? Or he hears terrible things. No, right? You're an effing idiot, right? I mean, all the things that boys hear from their fathers, the physical abuse, the violence, the rage, that is a profound wounding. He doesn't get love. He ends up being a very insecure man. He ends up either trying to get love in 1,000 ways, right? Sex, money, people liking me, right? success, being great at sports, something like that, right? He's looking for love, a father love.
When that securing, validating, grounding presence isn't in a young person's life, I think they're just loose cannons sort of flailing around for identity and significance and importance.
Father Richard Rohr is the author of dozens of books, including the groundbreaking publication Wild Man to Wise Man, originally released in 1990. Rohr is one of the first authors to really explore that idea that a father is the first person in the outside world to either choose us or not. It's that decision that incidentally affects us for the remainder of our lives. It's also a wound that he says can be found everywhere.
And I've preached on all continents now. I've been in so many countries. I think it's the most universal wound on this earth.
Any author that is out there that writes about this will tell you that it is by far the exception that a child is not wounded by the parents in some way.
So boy or girl, right? The father's been given this incredibly powerful role to bestow a blessing, an identity, a confidence, an assurance, a settledness in the soul, right? And I mean, you walk into any psychologist's office in the world, and 9 times out of 10, the root issue in the presenting problems, whatever they are, the addictions, the affairs, the depression, it's a father.
This is the progression. A father creates a wound by his absence, his lack of engagement, and from that, vows are made, a set of rules that we live by, a subconscious code on which we base every decision. Vows are constructed with terms such as I will always or I will never. The danger in those vows lies in how we take them to others in our lives and how these absolutes never allow us a life of true freedom.
It gives us the lens that we look at life through, and that vow typically looks like I will never be poor, or I will always be skinny, or I will never be laughed at, or I will never be hurt again, or to the extreme, depend on how the child's heart was handled, is I'll never be a man, or I'll never be beautiful.
He was just never there. He was never there, period. If I have a child, I would always be there for them. I don't care hell or high water if I was overseas or not. I mean, I would be there. I wouldn't have to think about it. I mean, if I have to kill somebody to get to my son, I would kill to go see my son.
Watch and listen now as you hear the end result of a father wound come to life in the vows of these few who represent the many.
I've come to the realization that if he doesn't want me in his life, then there's no need for me to be. You know, I've made the promise to myself that I would never repeat what my father did to me and to my sisters and to my mother.
And then he would constantly tell me that I was gonna, that I inherited the fat gene and that I was gonna blow up like my mom and be a big fat blimp. Yeah, when and if I ever do have children, I would never make them feel the way he made me feel. I definitely vow to that and never have him see me do the things that he's done.
To be honest, he's missed out on a lot. Now he asks me how am I doing in school, and I just tell him great. But in reality, I'm not doing so good. When I have children, doesn't matter how many, I'm going to treat them all the same, regardless if it's a boy, girl, race, doesn't matter. They're my children, I decided to bring them to this world. I'm going to take care of them.
I was still very hurt. I was mad and I was hurt and I was angry. But more than anything, I wanted to show him that I didn't need him. And that was when I just felt so alone and so abandoned that I don't know, it's like I vowed I would never trust anyone. And then, life began. I had to do it by myself, and I did.
You're only going to hit me hard once. But when my mom and dad died, that was the hardest hit I've ever took. You know, there's a good Johnny and there's a bad Johnny. I want to stay with the good Johnny. I want to be happy. I want to get on a horse and take off. I want to wrestle with my kids. But when the depression kicks in, don't matter what comes by me, I'm going to hurt you. And it's awful, because that's not really me.
In the West today, you can almost assume that people carry two wounds. A wound in relationship to authority, because we've had so much bad authority in church and state, and a wound in regard to sexuality.
When you try and teach your young people that there are no essential differences between men and women, that brings chaos into the whole social fabric. You take away the nobility and the beauty and the dignity of gender differences, right? You take that away and then you try and get men and women to be good men and women. It won't happen.
In essence, what both Rohr and Eldredge are referring to is the notion that boys will be boys. If they're not allowed to be, the damage can be devastating.
Earlier cultures understood that there's a warrior in the heart of a boy, right? And you take that and you shape it to be good, right? To serve others, right? To serve what is right and noble, right? But you don't tell them it's bad. You don't just take it away, and so, well, we don't let Timmy play with guns, right? We don't want our sons doing that. No, don't play army. Don't do any of that stuff. Absolutely emasculating. Are you kidding me? Of course your kid's going to play with guns, right? The little boy's wired for it. He's going to make it out of graham crackers or sticks, right? I mean, my sons turn every broom into a sword, right? Or a bazooka or something like that. It is so deep in the heart of a boy to be the warrior. To tell them that aggression's bad, that's all bad. It's profoundly emasculating. Boys are wired for adventure, and boys are wired for aggression. And aggression is good. I mean, you want a boy to stand up as a man to apartheid, right? You want him to stand up to injustice, then he has to have something in him that's learned that there are good forms of aggression.
For boys, it's the scraped knees and the dirty fingernails and the backyard battles that are the beginnings of an invitation. When those things are removed, what's left is what Wildman founder Mark Garcia calls the scripted life.
Someone hands you a script, either psychologically or emotionally or verbally, through an upbringing, and because you are susceptible typically in those adolescent years, you absorb that script. You and men and women end up going into professions they had that was not on their heart. They end up taking on behaviors that was not who they are. They end up speaking certain ways because of the way that was imposed on them. The scripted life is what life is done to them, to us, and it is not necessarily who we are.
According to Eldredge, another danger in not allowing that natural aggression in boys, which is often stifled because of an absent father, is how it affects the boys once they step into the world of men.
When men go bad, they either go passive or they go violent. Those are pretty much the two options, and there's a culturally acceptable violent. We call it drivenness, we call it success, right? The guy who's just gone in his world, making it happen, or this passivity, just checked out. And you know what? There's a lot of the culture that likes that likes a very nice man, just a very sweet man. But then we wonder, how come his wife leaves him? Right? Why are his kids going nuts, Well, because he's completely checked out. He's not a good man, but he's sweet.
Now, there's something about gratuitous choice. My mom has to love me, but when my dad loves me, that is unbelievably validating to the little girl. Now, to the little boy, too. But to the little girl, this tells me I really am okay. Now, when she doesn't get that, of course, her need for male attention is just bottomless.
Just as aggression is a natural, healthy outlet for boys to discover their worth, the role of a father is just as pivotal for a little girl. It's not strength or bravery that she's needing to confirm, but value and beauty. And that can come from only one person.
Now what's fascinating is every little girl has a question, but it's a different question. And the question goes something like, do you delight in me? Am I worth fighting for? Do you see me? Do you value me? Am I known and am I wanted? But she takes that question to her dad as well.
That's it. It's pretty simple questions. And if the father does not answer that question for the daughter, she takes that out and seeks that. Am I lovely? Am I valuable? Can you see me?
The number one predictor of sexual promiscuity in teenage girls is no dad. Because she's now looking in boys to get that father love, to get that validation, that affirmation that she needed from a father.
And I'm convinced this is true. Like the prostitutes I worked with at the jail, none of them had good fathers, as I said before. When a father, appropriately loves, validates, touches, affirms his little girl, she just doesn't need to run off with the first boy at 14.
I feel that if I have sex, that they're gonna like me more.
Beginning about 70 years ago, a mass migration of men from their households began, and the trend has increased in numbers since. For example, it's been said that during World War II, around 16 million soldiers were engaged in battle. Most of them were men. Nearly 1 million died. That left a gaping wound in the role of fathering. Upon their return, several different outcomes were realized. One, due to the psychological toll of the war, many men were emotionally detached from their children. Another happened as America recovered.
In the West, largely because of the Industrial Revolution, the father goes away and he spends most of his working hours and therefore most of his energy, most of his mental focus, and he spends himself out there in the world. And what the kids get when he gets home is the leftovers.
What seemed to have been the case with a lot of World War II fathers, or even the first part of last century, is just that they didn't think they were supposed to have any part in child rearing. That was a mother's role. So they just withdrew, and you won't have so much the abusive father as just the emotionally unavailable father, the father who took no interest in my life.
And what good fathers did at this time was they were the breadwinners. They could be a moral guide, but they were mostly a breadwinner. That's what they did. And so a really good father at this time, he had a reason not to be engaged in the day-to-day activities with his children, because the idea at the time was that he really should not. The mother should be doing that.
Western culture shifted away from being an agrarian society where 2 and 3 generations lived in the same household for multiple generations, where father worked alongside his son, and son, even along with the grandfather, could see how what manhood looked like. But when the Industrial Revolution came along and fathers were leaving and mothers were left to take care of the children, the fathers were basically present but absent. And so the interaction between father and son and father and daughter diminished.
As the lack of father interest increased, so did some other alarming figures. For example, between 1900 and 1960, the number of children in single-parent households rose by less than a point. Over the next 40 years, divorces skyrocketed, climbing over 40%, leaving half of America's children without a father around. Today, in the African American community, it's an alarming 65% chance that no father lives in the home. Those numbers continue to climb. Incidentally, so do the numbers of teen pregnancies, high school dropout rates, and unwed teen mothers. Between 1960 and 1992, juvenile crime increased 6-fold in our country. Teen suicides tripled. Consider this. In a study conducted in 1985, it is said that of the nearly 50% of fathers involved in a divorce, 42% of those men will never see their children again, leaving tens of millions of children with little to absolutely no positive male influence in their lives and alone to find their way through another phase that's relatively new to American culture, adolescence.
People don't want to grow up. You see, we have an adolescent culture now.
Reviewing history, the term, or at least the philosophy behind adolescence, didn't really exist in the American culture until the early to mid-20th century. Children went to school and then worked at home, on the farm, or in the stores with their parents, earning to help the family. But when the leader of the household began his slow descent into distance, children were left to figure out what being an adult was all about on their own. And what was once a transitional period between the ages of 13 and 17 into adulthood has now turned into a perpetual childhood.
You have this world where people worship youth, right? We worship the young, the good-looking, the healthy, the ripped, right? The hard-body, the beautiful, right? We have an adolescent culture. It's like a culture in perpetual high school. We're not inviting, in particular, boys to become men. We're allowing this prolonged Peter Pan period, this syndrome, right, to go on for, oh my goodness, I mean, it starts, 9, 10, 11 years old, and we're allowing it to go into the 30s.
As culture cultivates a more and more seemingly individualistic society, full of constant status updates and tweets, so too seems to grow the gap between what was considered a man 3 or 4 generations ago and what is wandering our streets, our neighborhoods, our workplaces today.
Boys in Wall Street, right, wearing men's suits, making men's decisions, but acting like boys. And then all the way down through culture like that. So economically, it's shaking us. In the family, it's shaking us.
We've got to concentrate on raising up mature middle-aged men so that they can then, in the next generation, create, now some of our men are already doing it, create rites of passage for boys between 13 and 17, which was the classic period for initiation.
Initiation, defined as any important act or event marking the passage from one stage of life into another, the invitation into a club. In this case, being invited from childhood into manhood, an element missing from modern culture. Globally, other cultures understood the importance of that invitation. Some still practice the rites of passage that bring a boy into the realm of men. Today, domestically and in a majority of other nations, that invitation is never clearly administered. Boys are left wondering where they fit, what their role is, and they find themselves on a perpetual quest for validation.
And you have all these guys walking around that they're clueless. I don't know what it means to be a man. I doubt very much I am a man. And so I ain't going to play the man, right? I'm not stepping up. There's a lot of posing of, yeah, I've got a strength. I'm the real deal. Look at me. I'm something. Most of it is charades. It's a fake. It's a mask, right? Because you get inside that guy and he's terrified. He'll play the man, right, down in the hockey arena. But how come he won't talk to his 18-year-old daughter, right? He'll play the man, right, at work. And, he'll shut guys down, fire people. Right? He seems like, whoa, a pillar of strength. But how come he's abusive to his wife?
Coincidentally, women have something that men don't, which is a natural invitation, an organic initiation into adulthood. It's culturally and universally understood that when a girl has her first menstrual cycle, she's made that transition into a young woman. Boys, however, lack that call to action, that clear change. Without it, most spend their lives searching for someone to invite them into the fraternity of men.
Until the father sets up a forum or a series of challenges in a young man's life to move him into a manhood where he feels like he has what it takes, the man will go into adulthood wondering, do I have what it takes? And live his life out of his false self.
Everybody's dealt a hand coming into this world. But what happens for for that little boy and that little girl next is what makes the difference. And by next, I mean their dad. The amount of his engagement, the amount of his love, the amount of his attention, physical affection, and I mean appropriate, hugs, right? Kisses. I like to be with you. Wrestling, right? Spending time together, hanging out on the couch. And then showing his children the way. The amount of engagement of a father, it almost makes the hand you're dealt insignificant. That's how powerful it is.
Consider the impact of an absent father. The U.S. Census Bureau says that 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. One study showed that up to 90% of suicidal teenagers felt that their families either ignored or rejected them. Between 1950 and 2000, the number of unwed teen mothers rose from 10% to just under 80. 71% of all high school dropouts come from a fatherless home. And furthermore, a collection of other probabilities for you.
Not having a father, it's like, I need someone to look up to. I see some of my friends, their parents are, they're wealthy, and they look up to the dad for stuff, But I can't do that because I don't have a father.
It is a difficult world to navigate, even with the guidance and support of a father. But for these teenagers from an inner-city high school in Miami, the absence of their paternal leader, mentor, and teacher only made the road that much harder.
Like, I go to classes and I hear, oh, my dad this and my dad that, and I was always, I felt kind of like the oddball because I was like, wow, my dad, I don't know who my dad is. So it was like, wow, it's crazy, you don't think about, that when you're a kid, but it isn't until like you probably get to like maybe middle school when you start to notice, damn, your dad isn't really here.
Some kids always look for their dad to help them play sports or anything, and most don't have a dad, so they're like, do anything crazy, like run the streets, rob people, get in trouble, go to jail.
And I just remember all the kids telling stories of their dads as we were making these cards. They would say, oh yeah, I remember that time that my dad picked me up and we went to go for ice cream and I just missed a whole day of school. And I was like, I never had that.
My mother was there, but she had to work so much to support us. So it was like we was always with my aunt or my grandmother all the time. And my mom, we would see my mom, but it was like, hey, baby, hi, baby, I gotta go to work. Like that, I have to leave, I have to support this family. It's just me.
Without the father figure around or even present but absent, these teenagers prove a perfect case in the need for that male guidance. It also highlights the pressure that absence can place in other areas of the family. That's not to say that a mother can't do the job. It's, as you heard before, the need for the father's approval and the invitation, the validation that you, my child, are ready for this world. When that isn't given, a young man or young woman is simply left to wonder.
You don't think about it, but it isn't until you get older and older you start to, you start to ask yourself, why wasn't dad there? It's just that emptiness. And not just, it's okay to have a mother figure, but when your father figure isn't there, it hurts. Because it's like, who do you turn to?
It's not an angry type of feeling, but it's more like a jealousy. Like knowing that, okay, he could be with his dad. I can't. They go out, I stay home, doing nothing. They're out with their family or pretty much their dad, and I'm just home. And then if I go out with my friends and they go out with their dad, it's like, okay, isn't this what I'm supposed to be doing with my dad?
And everyone would come with their mother and their father, and with me would just be my mother and maybe my aunt. And I was like, okay, I have two mommies, but not like that. I have an aunt that substitutes as a mother, and I have a mother, biological mother, but no father.
And I used to feel like he disowned me, like he didn't he never wanted me to be a part of his life because he had a younger son who he lived with, who he loved and cared for. And when I was younger, that affected me.
You're basically scarred. You're scarred for life. I mean, you don't have someone to turn to aside from your mom. And, you know, sometimes you want to have, you know, there's some things you feel comfortable talking to your mom, but, you know, it doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like, when you have a father figure, you can talk to him about everything and anything. You know, from women to, you know, TV, you know, anything.
Amongst the friends that you have, I mean, how many of the kids that you know are struggling with this same problem, that their dads weren't there?
Wow. I think almost everybody I know.
Really?
Almost everybody I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don King Productions and St. Ides welcomes you to our featured bout of the evening here at the pit in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I got into boxing at the age in 76, I'm sorry. In 1976, I got into boxing and said, you know what, I would never do drugs. Look at the way it is, it's stupid. I want to show my kids something that they didn't show me.
32 wins, no losses, 2 draws with 24 wins coming by way of knockout. Tonight, he celebrates his birthday by defending his title for the 13th time. Here is the undefeated IBF and WBO Junior Bantamweight Champion of the world, introducing the baby face assassin. Here is Johnny Tapia.
Truth is that I got a broken heart, and I don't think it'll ever be fixed. And the reason why I tell you the truth is because I want to help others. But I'm pretty tore up from the floor up.
Tapia hitting on the break.
Tapia forgets about boxing and gets into fights. I mean, the street violence of his just takes over.
My grandfather's the one that raised me, but he had to also raise other 8 boys, 6 girls. You know, my family's very rough. Yeah. Got a brother who did 19 years, another brother did 12. And I never wanted to go to prison myself.
Fighting with a sense of urgency here. The accidental headbutt occurred a minute 30 into round 1. We'll take a look closely at it between rounds as the crowd chants in unison for Tapia.
Well, you know, I was raised in Wells Park Community Center, and that's where everything went. You know, how to play basketball, how to play football. I mean, I was never taught. I had to learn. But what I wish that I would have learned is how to be as rough that he was, because that's the only way you got your point across. And I'm not that kind of person unless you put me in the ring or unless you hit me. Well, then there's a different Johnny.
Almost a low blow, and there's the answer by Tapia. He said, you do it, I'll do it back.
And he did it. He didn't hesitate. I like that. Sounds odd, but I like that.
And here comes Tapia.
I had hugs, I had holds, but I wanted that mother and father relationship. And my wife does that with my kids, and I cut it off and make her do that with me. So my wife's like my wife, my best friend, my mother. I still treat her like she's my mom.
On Johnny Tapia's trunks, he's got Mi Vida Loca written, which is my crazy life.
And boy, he's had just that. And he comes on strong here.
Johnny Tapia's speed is just too much for Blanco, Steve.
And it's how she died, and it's how they did her. It really killed me. And I'll never recover from it. Truth is, and the fact is that I miss my mom and dad. And I'll probably die that way. And that I know. That I know for a fact.
In the spring of 1975, Johnny Tapia is 8 years old. His mother, Virginia, along with her parents, were raising Johnny. His father is gone, murdered while his mother was pregnant. She is his lifeline and the light of his life. Then in May, that light was extinguished. After a night of partying with some friends, Virginia did not come home. Johnny had begged his mother not to go out, and he had stayed up all night waiting for her. He claims that, in the early morning hours, he saw a pickup truck cruise slowly outside his bedroom window, his mother fighting with 2 men inside. It then sped away. According to his book, Mi Vida Loca, Virginia was taken to a remote location where she was stabbed multiple times and beaten with pipes and rocks. She survived that attack and was taken to the hospital by a construction worker who had found her. For 2 days she sat in the hospital, unidentified, her family still wondering where she might be. On the second day of her stay, a man, later identified as her killer, snuck into her hospital room and struck her in the head several times. He was gone before anyone had noticed that he was there, and Virginia died later that day.
That's what really kills me the most, is that, they stabbed her 22 times and raped her, and then they drugged her 100 miles. But before they did it, they brought her to my grandma's house, and I was seeing her changed up in back of the truck. I could never get that picture out of my mind. I wanted to kill this guy. I was going to stab the shit out of him, and I didn't care what happened.
From that moment on, Johnny erected a tower of rage inside himself from which he would strike at anyone and everyone who crossed his path, and even more so anyone who dare step in the ring with him. But the truth was, on the inside, his spirit was crushed.
You know, it was an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. I wanted him back. And I don't know if revenge was the call, if it helped out any, but I just wanted somebody to love me, hold me, take care of me. Just tell me I'm okay. I did everything bad to say that I was all right, instead of doing everything good and accept the glory and the fame.
The glory and the fame came from a boxing career that consisted of 6 world titles, an undefeated record that spanned over 12 years, and fighting for the likes of promoter Don King on networks such as Showtime. But the hundreds of thousands of adoring fans and million-dollar paychecks still did not fill the void left by his parents' deaths. So Johnny turned to the comfort that had never let him down: drugs. As his notoriety grew in the ring, it grew outside the ring as well. His victories in the ring were becoming overshadowed by his failures outside. Attempted suicides, drug overdoses, and criminal convictions were starting to pile up quicker than knockouts, and the champ admits that it all could have been different.
I just want somebody to say that I'm going to make it. I don't have to do those crazy stuff, I don't have to shoot nobody or stab nobody, or I've been doing everything in the wrong way. And I'm tired. I'm really beat down. I'm missing love and affection. Would I ever get it? I don't know, but...
Would you trade all of your belts for that?
In a heartbeat. My belts don't mean nothing to me. Well, I got 6 world titles. I got a total of 9. I broke every record in the history of boxing as being a natural fighter. What I really need to do is quit coke and become a bigger and better father and a husband. That's what I really need.
We interviewed Johnny in June of 2009. He had served 40 days in jail for a parole violation and was, at that point, in rehab for what he told us was the 18th time. This interview took place 1 week before he was released.
Boxer Johnny Tapia is back in jail tonight. The former world champ went to Red River this past weekend to help family members with their search for his cousin, Arthur Chavez, who went missing there last month. But according to probation and parole, Tapia never got permission for the trip from his probation officer and went into a bar while in Red River. Both are parole violations. Tapia was arrested in Albuquerque this morning for the violations. His family disputes the charges, though, saying Tapia did request permission, and they have videotape showing he never entered a bar. Probation and parole says it will now hold hearings to determine if Tapia should face punishment. Tapia was on probation after serving prison time. Earlier, he was caught with cocaine while on probation.
During the filming of this documentary, we visited 2 cities with the intent of talking to prostitutes, Albuquerque and Las Vegas. While the intent simply was to discuss their relationships with their fathers, the level of reluctancy was high, and the reasoning was very similar. None cared enough of their fathers to even speak of them. The ones that did, a woman in the adult entertainment industry and 2 that actually worked the streets, all had the same story.
I never felt loved with him, though.
What about now?
I still don't feel it. Never felt it.
Ginger is a woman who has worked in the adult entertainment industry of Las Vegas since she was a teenager. She says that from the time she was a child, her father never gave her the validation that she was starving for. On the contrary, he would insult her and her mother, and that sent Ginger running towards whatever or whoever would embrace her and answer the question that her heart kept asking. The whatever turned out to be X-rated dancing and beyond. The whoever was a sea of nameless faces that stretched over 2 decades for Ginger, all men that were putrid reminders of her father and a classic example of a wounded person wounding others.
I had that need to feel loved or accepted or whatever, and he felt like he was pushing me away a lot by telling me I wasn't his, and just some of the mean stuff that he would say to me. That's probably why I went on to be in these relationships that were very self-destructive, and with men that were a lot older than me, and trying to fill some void that I had, but yet just wasn't working. I knew that he didn't like that, and so it was. I kind of did it in a way to, you know, piss him off or whatever, and make him think, you know, because he used to say negative stuff about me being, you know, a slut or this or that, and so I thought, well, you know, you think of me this way, so, you know, I might as well go out and do it and make money doing it. Because I lost respect for him as a man and as a human being and person, I would look at those guys in disgust, and I would have no respect for them. And the only way that, and I would feel just compelled to want to take all their money.
Ginger, who now works the call center for an escort service, also admits that over the years of being in this business, that a vast majority of the girls that she's seen have come from a similar relationship with their fathers. They come to this industry rationalizing their involvement behind the mask of making money, but they're really looking for love and acceptance. And unfortunately, what they often get is a dose of rejection that's even more potent than the ones that they received at home.
And they would get hooked up with these guys, and these guys would be like, you know, go out there and, you know, I don't care what you got to do, just bring me home money. And then if they didn't make the money, they would come to work the next day all beat up with bruises on them and everything else.
On the streets of Albuquerque, the situation was a little different. The 2 women that agreed to speak to us were walking the streets trying to earn money when we approached them. Both charged us for our time, $20 to speak for 5 minutes. So the lighting and composition may be lacking, but the words that they have to say are utterly authentic. The first is 42-year-old Anaya. For 20 years she's been walking the streets and admits that it all started because of the poor relationship that she had with her father. She also confessed that there is a pain that she's running from and a comforting remedy that is easy to come by.
We just didn't get along as we was growing up. We just didn't like me. That's what I think.
He didn't like you?
No. He just, we stayed in the same house, but, you know, we never had no relationship.
I mean, why are you doing this?
Because I'm lonely and hurt. I've been hurt by men. When I get high or drink, you know, it just takes away the pain. But then when it wears off, it's like there again. I don't think about it when I'm drinking or getting high. I don't, you know what I'm saying?
It's just burying it.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're looking for that with the men, or is being...
I think I'm looking for love with men. You know what I'm saying?
When asked if her father's absence bothered her, the response was immediate.
No, it don't bother me. It's just like, I don't have no feelings for him. Like he told me, he said if something happened to me, it won't be no love loss. I think a father and daughter should be close. You know what I mean? I should be able to go with him about anything, talk to him about anything, you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't even know how to talk to him, you know what I mean? I you know, it's been like, we don't have no type of communication or relationship, so you know what I mean? It'll be hard to be like Like I'm talking to you, like for the first time. That's how I mean, he's my father. You're not even my father. I talk to you more right now than I ever talk to him.
The second woman is 33-year-old Valerie. She says her father molested her and is now in prison for molesting others. For 10 years, she's been walking the streets and admits it's mostly in an effort to deaden the pain one way or another.
Why do you do it?
One, because addiction. Two, because I have addiction because I try to cover up all the hurt, the pain, the anger.
So you're looking for something. What are you looking for in the drugs?
Just to numb me from everything.
When asked what she thinks about every day as she prepares to walk the streets, she became visibly uncomfortable. When asked what a good dad would have
It's been 4 months since police began unearthing human remains at a 100-acre dirt lot on the West Mesa. 7 of the 11 women have been identified. Just last Friday, police served a search warrant at an Albuquerque home, seizing evidence that may help them in their search for a suspect. About 100 detectives have been following up on local leads as well as leads in a dozen other states.
Wisconsin is talking about a number of prostitutes that they've had killed over the period of the last 10 years.
Police are working without an effective tool used in past high-profile murder investigations, a large reward. Right now, the reward is only at $1,000. Chief Schultz thinks more cash could generate the one tip needed to crack the case.
Money does talk, and especially you have to look at the type of crime. Very often, in this type of case, very often we're dealing with a different element of society.
I think if you would have been more supporting in my life, I would have went in a different direction.
Halfway around the globe, the situation has deteriorated into much the same issue. Whether a teenager in Northern Ireland or an old Irish thrasher, both generations agree that things there are headed in the wrong direction.
I think it is a big problem because you would look up to your parents. No, your parents are brought you into the world and they're rearing you, and you're just thinking like, well, the only people who get through to you is your mother and father, so if they're talking to you, and if people don't really have a mother or father, or they turn to you, they even talk to you, then you have nobody like.
Arthur Doherty is an 81-year-old Irish farmer who lost his father at the age of 3. He says things today in Europe are a far cry from what they used to be.
The young people's crazy now, as far as I can understand them. They're all now going to the town and all getting drunk and drugs. You wouldn't be safe on the road. Oh, they don't care either. A lot of them young parents now. They're socialising and going out to mothers and fathers now. Yeah. I see about them. I remember my mother, she wouldn't. Well, she would go to church on a Sunday and act in them necessary things with them, no socialising. Well, if there were a concert, something in the parish hall, she would, no, they're not, no, they don't care either. A lot of them young parents now, they don't bother them. They'll go now and let children, maybe they'll get a babysitter, maybe they wouldn't. Sometimes you wouldn't, it's different world altogether.
These teenagers from Londonderry say that the candle is burning at both ends. The kids aren't paying attention to their parents, and a lot of the parents aren't getting the job done for their kids.
I think some children are able to be really, really cheeky to them and can just, whatever they say, they do their own thing anyways, and they don't care what they think, and they do their own thing, and they really have no control over them.
Kids that don't have their dad my age, they don't have that
like guidance in their life. You know, they've got nobody actually look up to as a parent or as a role model in their home or in their community. So you sort of go astray and they get into violence, crime, and they end up having a bad life. If all you do is turn on the news at the weekend and see somebody's got beat up or somebody's been stabbed or something, that's got to come somewhere. Like, and I put it down to the grassroots of parenting, or lack of parenting for that matter.
In an effort to help highlight the way that a father's wound can perpetuate itself from one generation to the next, consider the story of Andrea. Her father left her mother when Andrea was 9 and remarried. Andrea says the new woman in her father's life was not too keen on having kids around, and when Andrea looked to her father for support, it didn't come.
She would like walk past me and she'd punch me, and then she'd cower as if I had done something to her. And one time she broke my arm, and every single time my dad, this is over a very short period of time, my dad took her side. I mean, I can remember like sitting at the top of the stairs listening to my stepmom yell that she doesn't want me there, she hates me, he has to choose, it's me or the kids, it's me or the kids. And just hoping and hoping that he's gonna say, screw you, or whatever, but never. It was always, he chose her every single time.
Eventually, the situation in her father's home became too much for him to bear. 2 days before her 10th Christmas, Andrea was handed a plane ticket and sent away. Confused and rejected, she went to live with her mother, and when Andrea was 13, her mother died. She was now all alone.
Him and his wife flew over for the funeral. And I asked him after the funeral, I said, Dad, can I just spend some time with you by myself? And he turns, and I was sitting in the back of the car, and he turns and he looked at me and he said, wherever I go, my wife goes. And then she turns and looks at me and says, and I don't want you back in our house.
From that point on, Andrea made the decision, the vow, to never need anyone, especially her father. But she admits that her level of self-worth had been demolished, and that is what led her to Billy.
You know, I met Billy when I was very young, 16, 17, and he was just the first male influence in my life. And I clung to that so desperately. I just wanted somebody to love me. I wanted the validation that I was good enough to come back to.
Now 18 and pregnant, Andrea thought that she had found the man to fill the void. She married Billy, and they had a daughter, Natalie. But not long after, and just as her father had done, Billy left. Alone again, and now with a baby girl to care for, Andrea opted for a new start, but not without a cost.
And I kept thinking, I'm doing to her what happened to me. I'm taking her away from her dad, and she's gonna have those feelings that I had. She is gonna wonder, why didn't he love me? And it was just so absolutely heart-wrenching.
Mother and daughter eventually found their way, and Andrea established a good home for them both. Andrea says Billy made attempts throughout the years to keep in contact with Natalie, but overall fell short as a father. Natalie continued to grow, and Andrea continued to struggle with the wound left by her father walking out the door.
Every relationship that I've had with a male figure from the time of my dad has answered the question that I'm not worth fighting for. And I think from the very first time that he didn't fight for me, that I just knew I wasn't worth it. And if the one person that is supposed to want to be there for me isn't, then why would somebody else? Someone that doesn't have that blood relationship, why would they?
And you see it unfold. A wounded daughter seeking refuge in the love of another person, the wrong people, time and time again. Now a grown woman with a young girl, no father, and the wound gets handed on.
I feared that Natalie would have that same hurt, and I did everything that I could to protect her, but there's some things you just can't protect your kids from. I mean, the absence of a father it's just a hole you can't fill.
Now nearing adulthood, Natalie has struggles of her own. She admits that the absence of her father has caused her to seek that affection, that validation, in all of the wrong places. And she's compromised herself to find it.
I try so hard to make guys happy that I've managed to push everyone else out of my life. I mean, friends, like me and my mom, like no one is more important to me than some guy, the guy who, of the month, the week. No one is as important.
At 17 years old, Natalie is well aware of what she's looking for in the boys, but still not finding. She admits to at least 7 sexual partners, and she knows that having a father around would have changed everything.
It would have made all the difference. Like, first off, when you have a dad, someone to protect you, someone to want to meet every guy that you go out with and, you know, lay down the law and be like, you know, you respect my daughter and you don't do this or you don't do that. But I've never had that. And the way I look, I think that I'm like pretty, but I don't feel wanted. Like, I don't feel that anyone wants me besides my mom. I don't know how things will play out. Am I going to have to hit rock bottom, or are things going to have to get really bad before I realize, you know, I don't want my life to be this way?
It's kind of hard to go back to the beginning and figure out exactly when I started to feel like there was something wrong with me and when I started to equate that feeling of something being wrong with me to being ugly.
Robin Decker is an award-winning fitness competitor and a model. She's been photographed, she's been interviewed, even painted. But it wasn't always that way. As a young girl, her parents divorced, and she divided her time between them. She says that her mother was a caring woman and always showed her love and affection, always attention. Unfortunately, so did her father.
He would tell me that my ass looked really good in my pants or that I looked really sexy.
And you were how old?
The first time I remember hearing that, I was 9, but he had already been physically, sexually abusive towards me for, I don't really know how long. You know, and like putting a porno in to watch in front of me, because that's a good idea.
And you're how old at this point?
That happened between the ages of 9 and 10.
But it didn't stop there. Robin says she has several memories of sexual abuse by her father during her visits, things that immediately began to destroy and distort any chance that she had at a normal childhood.
I remember taking a shower with him, and I remember some sexual abuse happening there, and it was oral, but, you know, abuse is abuse.
Afraid to report the incidents to anyone, they continued. Meanwhile, Robin adopted a sad reality of what women were for, assuming that they were only objects to be used sexually. She found herself alienated from classmates and surrounded by older guys. Those guys were simply part of her quest for validation.
You know, the 18 to 24-year-old guys, that's all they were interested in was sex, and they didn't care how old I was. And that was the only acceptance that I found, was with the older guys. And the sex I related to love. And that's all I wanted. Love. That's it.
And when it was over, was it there?
No.
Boy after boy, Robin took her question out, trying to find the answer, and it never came. What did was one of the biggest surprises of her young life.
I had my son 3 weeks after my 14th birthday.
Now 14 and a mother, she finally reported the abuse to a school counselor, and she was removed from her father's home. But the damage had already been done. Over the next decade and a half, Robin would battle demons unlike anything she could have ever imagined. She had a second son at the age of 16, a third at the age of 19. She was constantly engaged in a war against weight, becoming more and more skinny. All of these things she now traces back to the wounds of a father.
I never got to be a girl. I never got to go through the things that you're supposed to go through growing up. I was like thrown into some sick version of womanhood. You make a connection between the ugliness that you feel inside and the image that you see in the mirror, and then you try and change that. Combined with, if I can't control what somebody puts into my body by way of sexual abuse, I will control what I put into my body by counting every calorie, every carbohydrate, every gram of fat.
A few years ago, she found sanctuary in the gym. She began to work out with a healthy goal in mind. She began eating properly, and she began to digest the idea that things were not her fault. Now, a well-known model, she admittedly still struggles with some of the emotional scar tissue. She's the mother of 4 sons, 2 of which she does not see. She also knows that much of this could have been different.
And I would have gone through none of that, I think, if I hadn't been trying so hard to find the love that I needed from this horrible man.
As we close Robin's story, we offer her an opportunity to speak directly to the little girl that she once was. What would she say to her? How would she help? What advice would she give to that little girl if she were sitting right next to her?
I would tell her not to search for her daddy's love everywhere. And that she has to somehow just believe that people love her. And that she's beautiful.
You know, I'd love to make the connection between this and war. I really would. I mean, why has so much of history been warlike and boys killing boys? We just so over-identify with this aggressive, attacking, fighting, abusing, killing. You know, I mean, we know for a fact Adolf Hitler was a physically abused boy by his father. Physically abused, you know? Where does all this need to abuse other people come from? Except some levels of abuse within ourselves.
My reality of my childhood was pretty normal. I thought it was a pretty normal childhood. I realize now, when I look back, our family was pretty insulated, very closed off, insular. There was a feeling that we were a little better because of our religion. Our religious belief was Christian Science, and there was the concept of Christian Science is you're using all of the God's power to heal you. You don't believe in doctors. You don't believe in dentists even. You don't believe in anything around health class or anything physical like that. You're learning every subject in the classroom. And, okay, get out your health books, and I would have to leave. My reality was that, you know, when you're standing in the hallway, you're in trouble, you know, and teachers are looking at you funny, and, you know, you're getting just getting the bad vibes from people. Yeah. And I'm out here because my parents told me a little speech to say about our religion and why. And I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it or understand it. So when people would say, you know, oh, this and that, and we believe this, and, you know, my dad would kind of roll his eyes and say, no, we don't believe in that. And, you know, when he would read from the Bible, he'd get teary-eyed and it would be so emotional. And I would wonder why I don't get any of that. What's wrong with me, you know? Am I supposed to be like him? Well, I wanted to learn about all things, and I wasn't really allowed to do that. Well, I think the wound was that I'm different than everybody else, and no one will ever understand what I'm thinking. And so that's one of those things that obviously have shown up in some lyrics.
Dear mother, dear father, what is this hell you've put me through? Believer, deceiver, day in, day out, live my life through you. Pushed onto me what's wrong or right, hidden from this thing that they call life.
My other belief about my family is it fell apart, it disintegrated, and I knew nothing about it. I didn't know it was happening, and I wasn't the man. I wasn't taught to step up and take control of the family and say, hey, wow, this is going on. The thing that hurt me most, and when I look back at it, I get really mad that my dad he left without saying goodbye. He left a note. He left a note, and it wasn't even to me. And I fucking hated him for that. And I let him know.
Did you?
Yeah. And my sister couldn't believe how I was talking to my dad, you know? She's like, what are you doing? You're talking to him like that. It's like, I don't care. Right. You know, he screwed us. When my father left, I was 13. My mother passed away, I was 16. I blamed him for that. I blamed him for my mom passing away. Obviously, the Christian Science religion is you don't go to the doctor. Right. She died of a cancer that we watched her wither away, me and my sister. It was a big blur, all of that. Yeah. You know, all through high school. I went straight into the drinking, so I masked a lot of feelings of abandonment. Once the abandonment happened, and once I really got a deep anger for my father and my mother passed away, I had couple of close friends that I was pretty close with, but not to the point where you could sit down and say, man, my mom died and I feel like this. You know, there was none of that. There was no funeral. There was no grieving part. That's another part of the religion that it didn't do well for me.
I see faith in your eyes. Never you hear the discouraging lies. I hear faith in your cries. Broken is the promise. Betrayal, the healing hand held back by the deepened nail. Follow the God that failed.
I feel so weird saying this, but I really tried to get close with him again, get back together, and I bought him a house so I could go visit him. And it's like, why did I do that? Why? You know, am I supposed to do that? You know, rockers, when they get money, they buy their parent the house they wanted. Yeah, we'd go hunting together. We'd do some things together, but it was never close. It was extremely surfacey, very surfacey. And I think I asked him one time, you know, why do you think Mom died? And he kind of jumped around the subject a bit. I told him what I thought. I thought she died because you left. And she didn't know what to do. She didn't know you were the breadwinner. She didn't know how to work. She didn't know how to do anything. I mean, she was an artist. She could go and paint and do stuff like that, but to sustain your family on just that was tough. It didn't end great with my dad. He was sick. He had cancer as well. And it kind of went away. It just went away. I've gotten closure with my mom, going to her, I guess mausoleum you'd call it, and just asking her all kinds of questions. You know, why? Why didn't you let us help you? This, all these things, all these questions that maybe I'll get the answer to later. I certainly started to close off the world and get very, very deep into music and let my feelings out through music. I would hear songs and understand that they're talking to me, they're communicating with me, they understand me. And that was where I started to connect to music deeply. My family fell apart, so I created my own family with the band. And then Cliff goes, and that was another extremely tough time.
Early Saturday morning, September 27th, 1986, on the road near Ljungby, Sweden, Cliff Burton died. He was 24 years old.
He just got thrown out the window and boom, the bus landed on him. And basically, by all accounts, I mean, he never woke up.
Drinkers we were. We went back to the hotel and just drank, you know.
I remember at 4 o'clock in the morning, I could hear James down on the street, drunk, screaming, Cliff, Cliff, where are you? And when I heard that, I just broke into tears, you know.
Within hours, news of Cliff's death reached Metallica's fans in America.
I would say that Cliff passing didn't, well, yes, it really reopened that whole wound of abandonment, of anyone I'm kind of gonna get close to is just gonna leave. And it's better maybe to not put your heart out there. I see how I gathered up some of those tools and used them later on to, you know, the mighty Hetfield speaks or something, you know, stand back, don't get close, you know, I'm a rock, I'm immovable, you know, I've got no emotion. And that was the easy way to not get close to anybody. And yeah, I still struggle with that, you know, wanting to just stop the world. Okay, you get there, you know, the total control aspect of it. On stage was an easy persona to put on. It's a jacket that I could wear easily because of my past wounds, and I could get up there and play the victim and you know, back off, get away from me, and but when I took that off, it was still there. There's an integrity to part of that I believe, but most of it is the shield. It's the shield to keep people back.
I'll die if I let go. Control is love. Love is control. I will only let you breathe my air that you receive. Then we'll see if I let you love me. Kill, 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 kill!
I try to write about something and it morphs into this other thing. And that is the gift part that I believe. It's allowing me to get the stuff out that's still sitting in there. It's no good to you until you discover it yourself, you know? So sitting there, you know, soapboxy, writing lyrics about, okay, your dad left and now do this for yourself and blah, blah, blah. No one's gonna relate to that. They're gonna wanna relate to the struggle and know that there's someone out there helping speak about this. Wounds are good fodder for lyrics, man. They're a great thing to write about, and it's your story. You know, I'm getting to write my story, and people listening to it.
What do you think the most personal track is to you?
Unforgiven.
With time the child draws in, this whipping boy done wrong, deprived of all his thoughts, the young man struggles on and on, no.
Our kids have no choice on how good a parent we're gonna be. I'm gonna be there because of what's happened in my past. I've had to learn how to love the family. I really have, because it didn't come easy. I fought it. I fought it for a while. I think once I started yelling at my kids and laying down the hammer, and I just, oh, whoa, that's what my dad would do. I gotta stop that. And what really has helped me a lot with forgiving my dad or letting that go is just rewinding into his childhood and seeing he was raised on a farm with a bunch of women, you know. He didn't have a father figure. His dad wasn't around. I had to realize that the world does not revolve around James Hetfield, and that I get a lot more gratification out of hanging out with my family than I do with anybody else.
Big eyes to open soon, believing all under sun and moon. But does heaven know you're here? And did they give you smiles or tears? No, no tears.
Well, I always say I want to make it to Grandpa, where I can just sit there and have all the little ones run around and, oh yeah, Grandpa Het, how's it going? And, you know, and pull my finger, all that good stuff, you know. I definitely want that. I want to be the patriarch of the family and feel like I can be loved by them, and I can answer any, no matter how silly the question is, I'll take time to answer that. That's what I'd love to do to my kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, who knows. That's the love part of this world, and I want to see more of that.
Fathers have to take the time to work on themselves. In other words, you can only give away what you have become.
There is a profound movement among men who were themselves fatherless, at least emotionally, spiritually, if not most of them physically, who are rising up to become good men.
I realize that there is a movement of parents wanting to be there and be there with their kids.
Our awareness of it as a problem, in my opinion, does show an evolution of consciousness.
There's another trend, and the networks haven't picked it up yet, and I don't know if the sociologists have really clued into it, but it's there.
Though the issues of fatherlessness plague us at nearly every turn, there are things in motion that can create change. Programs, curriculums, spiritual community groups, literature, and nameless other efforts that are wanting to shift the paradigm. One of those is Wild Man. Created by Mark Garcia and founded on the philosophies of Father Richard Rohr and John Eldredge, Wild Man takes small groups of men out onto the wide ocean waters of Mexico, where they are challenged to not only deal with the damage they've done to others, but to dissolve those vows that they've built their lives upon.
Pretty much once they get out there, they are subjected to what Father Rohr calls the liminal space, the liminal time. And for the most part, we see a man come in as this and leave as something else. And that's pretty darn exciting.
Garcia says that after a few days on the water and a few nights of unpacking the issues, better husbands, better fathers, better men emerge.
Finally see this cloud, this haze that we all walk around in every day, and we don't even know about these behaviors that we use. Why did I say that? Why did I talk to my son that way? Why did I behave to this business associate that way? It's from the vow. And we help them discover that, and they, for the most part, it is very life revealing. And we look back and we go, oh, the body's in the wake that I have left behind, and the way I have hurt my children through that vow, the way I have hurt my marriage through that vow. And we help the gentlemen and the men that are there see that. And at least by seeing it, they can begin to understand it and work on it.
Individuals are getting better. There is a resurgence of a longing for the true things, for a real life, and there's a resurgence of fathering.
Eldredge notes that one of the biggest groups pushing for change can be found in the church, and much of that has to do with their perspective on fatherhood.
Judaism and Christianity and what they offer the world in terms of God as Father, God as one who cares, God is one who is present, God is one who will provide, God is one who will discipline, right? that trend in the church now of men rising up to become good men it's a spiritual phenomenon. I'm very, very hopeful for the men's movement. I'm very hopeful for men.
It's just, I fell down so hard. I went to a place that I didn't want to be. But it was for a good purpose. I had no problems doing it.
7 months after his arrest for the Red River parole violation, Johnny Tapia was released from prison. At 43, he was a year older than when we first interviewed him and 30 pounds lighter. His first order of business was to get back into the ring. So, at the OK Casino in Espanola, New Mexico, the former world champion readies himself for the only thing that he's really ever known: battle.
I'm battling my drug problems, and I'm battling a fighter. Life is always a battle. It's who comes up standing.
But this fight night is a little different. 2 hours before Johnny steps into the ring, his son, little Johnny, will make his professional boxing debut. Midway through the second round, his mother, Teresa, Johnny's wife and manager, gets up and leaves the fight. Within seconds, Johnny Tapia appears from nowhere, and the embattled boxer, who has spent a lifetime with the spotlight on him, sheds it to become a father. Little Johnny loses the fight, and his father, who did not lose for the first 13 years of his career, whispered 2 things to his son: "I love you, and I'm proud." As Tapia's fight, labeled the Battle for Redemption, draws closer, the crowd becomes restless, anxious for Johnny. They've watched him grow up. They've watched him hit bottom. They've watched him win fights and lose family members. He is them and their struggles, and that is why they welcomed him back. For 3 rounds, the fight goes back and forth. Tapia is a bit slower than he was in his youth. His punches not as powerful, his feet not as fast. But he's still a world champion. And in the 4th round, Johnny provided what everyone there needed from him: hope for redemption and a solid left hook.
There you go!
The tormented champion, who'd been knocked down only once in the ring but so many times by life, is the fighter within us all. Like Johnny, we are now free to fight once more. We're free to deny the demons of our youth. We're free to be better men, free to be better husbands. We are free to be better fathers. We're free to be absent no more. Ed Murrow once said that some truths are so naked that we feel sorry for them and cover them up, at least a little bit. The pandemic of fatherlessness is a truth that we can no longer hide under the blanket of our apathy. We must begin to fight for the hearts of our children, for if we do not, they and every child from now until the end will wander this world with a hole in their chest, and we'll have no one to blame but ourselves.